This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Hey y'all, welcome to Truthful Tuesday, where we tell the truth without ruining your mood or your lunch or entire outlook on humanity. This is not a bad news hour, a trauma dump, or a place to cry in the comments, okay? This is the kind of truth that makes you laugh first, nod second, and then quietly say, okay, yeah, that tracks. If you're tired of everything being dramatic, exhausting, or way too deep before noon, you're in the right place. Let's have some fun with it. Man, do y'all ever have one of those days where you just get interrupted with everything? Oh, everything today is interrupting me. All right. Welcome in, everybody. I am glad you're here, truly, because Truth Teller Tuesday is one of those shows that sounds serious until you actually sit in it for about 5 minutes and realize, this is just common sense with better timing. This is not a let's unpack our childhood situation, okay? This is not a therapy session, and nobody's leaving here needing a nap. Promise. This is the kind of truth that makes you laugh first, and then later you catch yourself thinking, yeah, I probably already knew that. I probably did. Hello, Plus Sister. Good to see you, honey. Pardon me while I spam the chat a second. How are you, doll? Good to see you. Okay, so here's what Truth Teller Tuesday is really about. It's about all those moments in life where you hear a story and immediately think, well, that didn't need to go that far. Or when someone explains something for 10 straight minutes and you're sitting there thinking, this could have been a sentence, just one. That's the energy today. We're not fixing people. We're not diagnosing anyone, and we're absolutely not pretending that everything is deep just because someone feels strongly about it. Sometimes the truth is simple, and sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's funny and simple. I think people are tired, not tired in a dramatic way, just tired in a why is everything so serious all the time way. Every conversation doesn't need a warning label. Every mistake isn't a character flaw. And every bad day is not a story arc. Truth Teller Tuesday is where we take all of that down a notch and say, okay, let's look at this clearly, laugh where we can, and move on without carrying it around for the rest of the week. Now, if you're new here with me, let me give you a little expectation here. I'm going to set it for you as soon as I take a drink. Goodness. Oh, I don't think. You saw Big Jack put out that post. That's actually me. I'm not sure if he's in here. He may be in a little bit, Nisi. But that's me working in our studio. So I can give it to everybody on all our platforms and makes it really, really nice. Okay. All right, so this isn't a pile-on show either. Nobody's getting dragged, nobody's getting humiliated, and nobody's getting told they're a terrible human, right? I don't do that here. But we're also not going to tiptoe around obvious nonsense. I don't sugarcoat either. We can be kind and honest at the same time, and I promise you those two things, they coexist way better than people think they do. Now, what you'll hear today are real letters, real situations, and real reactions. Some of these stories are funny because they were meant to be, okay? Some are funny because they absolutely were not meant to be. And some are funny because when you step back and you realize the entire problem could have been solved with one clear sentence and about 10 fewer emotions, that's not judgment, okay? That's perspective. And let me be honest for a second. Half the stress we deal with isn't because things are hard. It's because things are loud. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a reaction. And nobody ever seems to pause and ask, does this actually matter tomorrow or next week or at all? Truth Teller Tuesday lives in that pause, that moment where you stop, squint a little, and say, okay, that explains a lot. If you're watching live, hang out in the chat, enjoy the conversation, and don't feel pressure to perform. Hi, Big Jack. There he is. You don't have to announce your presence. You don't have to solve anyone's problems, and you definitely don't have to defend your entire life story. We're just here to talk, laugh, and tell the truth in a way that doesn't ruin our mood for the rest of the day. So settle in. This is not heavy. This is not exhausting. This is Truth Teller Tuesday, where honesty doesn't come with a headache. And with that, let's get into it. Okay, let's see here. We're doing this thing again today, so we're trying to make it work right. And we are working right today. But this is what we do before we get into the letters today. I want to set this up with something that happened to me. It's organic this way, and it makes you understand that I'm human too, right? Because it fits Truth Teller Tuesday perfectly as well. So not because it was dramatic or life-altering, but because it was one of those moments where you just step back and you think, okay, so that's how people are choosing to move through the world now. Okay. You know that kind. Nothing technically went wrong. Nobody broke any laws, but the whole situation just left you standing there blinking like, did that really just happen? And that's what made me laugh about it much later, because in the moment, I almost took it seriously. Almost. I almost went into let me explain myself mode. And then I got caught, or then I caught it, that little internal alarm that goes off and says, hey, no, this does not deserve this much energy. Pardon me. This is not a crisis. This is just someone being very confident about something that makes absolutely no sense. I think we've all had those moments where the truth isn't harsh. It's just inconvenient, right? There's nobody being evil, but somebody is definitely being extra. And the funny part is the truth in those situations usually isn't something you have to dig for. It's sitting right there on your surface, waving at you like, hi, you can see this too, right? What gets me is how often we talk ourselves out of that clarity. We overthink it. We soften it. We tell ourselves we're being too judgmental when really we're just being observant. And that's what this story reminded me of. Sometimes the truth doesn't need a speech. It just needs a pause and a raised eyebrow. So as I tell this, I'm not telling it to make a point or teach a lesson. I'm telling it because I think you'll recognize the energy, okay, immediately. And I really feel that moment where you realize the situation says more about the behavior than it does about you. And once you see it clearly, well, it kind of loses its power, it stops being frustrating and starts being a little funny. So let me tell you what happened, and then we'll circle back to why it fits today so perfectly. All right. So here's what happened. I was in a situation recently, okay, that on the surface looked completely normal, right? Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming, just one of those everyday interactions where you assume everyone is operating on the same basic social software. Spoiler alert, we were not. And it didn't realize that I didn't realize it right away. Okay. Because at first I did what most of us do. I gave the situation the benefit of the doubt, right? I thought, okay, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's context I don't have. All very reasonable thoughts, right? Right up until the moment they weren't. It started small, which is usually how these things go, right? A comment that didn't quite land, a tone that felt a little confident for the amount of information behind it. You know that feeling where someone is explaining something to you, but pretty sure they're explaining it wrong. And you're standing there thinking, okay, do I correct this or do I just let the universe handle it? That's where I was, right on the edge between clarity and chaos. I know you've been there before, right? And here's the funny part. Okay. The more confident this person became, the clearer it was that confidence was doing all the heavy lifting, not experience, not accuracy, not anything, just confidence, full volume, no hesitation. Like if they said it out loud enough and enough with enough authority, reality would eventually adjust itself to match. And I'm standing there nodding because socially that's what we do. While internally I'm thinking, wow, this is fascinating. At one point, I realized I had stopped listening to the actual words and started listening to the delivery because the delivery was impressive. I mean, truly. Okay. If confidence were currency, this person would have been paying for everyone's lunch. Facts. And that's when it clicked for me. This wasn't a conversation. This was a performance, and I was accidentally a part of the audience. Lord help me. Now, normally, this is the moment where people jump into explanation mode. They start clarifying. They start justifying. They start pulling out receipts. Oh my gosh. You know, nobody asked for those. I felt that instinct kick in. You know the one. I could feel myself gearing up to say, well, actually, and then I stopped. But something about the situation felt oddly familiar. Like I'd been here before. Like I knew exactly how this would go if I took that bait. So instead, I did something radical. I paused, I listened, and I let the moment play out without trying to fix it. And the longer I did that, the more obvious it became that the truth didn't need my help. It was just sitting there, patiently waiting, like, don't worry, I got this. What made it even better was how the conversation started looping. Same points, slightly rearranged, same confidence, slightly louder, like we were circling a roundabout that nobody knew how to exit. You know what my husband calls those things? A traffic stupid. It's true. Circles and circles and circles, and you're just waiting to get hit, right? And at that point, I wasn't annoyed anymore. I was entertained because once you realize you're not responsible for managing someone else's certainty, the whole thing becomes kind of funny. There was a moment, and I swear this is true. God, I swear it, where I thought we are doing this on purpose. Like this is it an improv exercise? What am I doing here? And I suppose, am I supposed to say yes? And at some point, why? Because the commitment was strong. No cracks, no doubt, just unwavering belief in something that made less and less sense the longer it went on. My Lord. And here's the thing that really got me. Okay, nobody was being mean. Nobody was being aggressive. This wasn't a conflict. It was just unnecessary. All of it. The extra explanation, the unearned authority, the insistence on being right in the situation that did not require a right answer. And that's when I realized why it stuck with me. Not because it bothered me, but because it was such a perfect example of how often we make life harder than it needs to be. I walked away from that interaction lighter than I went in, okay? Which surprised me, not because I'd won anything, but because I had picked up something that wasn't mine to carry. I didn't correct. I didn't argue. I didn't absorb the energy. I just let it be what it was, right? And later, when I replayed it in my head, like we all do, instead of questioning it, though, this time I laughed. Not in a mean way, in a wow, that was something. So that's the truth of it. Not every situation needs response. Not every confident statement needs your correction. And not every awkward moment is a problem to solve. Some of them are just stories waiting to be told later, preferably with snacks, you know? That's why this struck me, okay? It just stuck me because it reminded me of how freeing it is to choose clarity over reaction, to recognize when the truth doesn't need defending. You guys, I tell you this over and over and over again. Don't react. Don't react. Take a pause. Take a beat. Whatever you want to call it. Take it. Just don't react. And to remember that sometimes the healthiest response is simply noticing what's happening and moving on, right? And once you see that, you start seeing it everywhere, which makes life a lot less stressful and a lot more entertaining, right? All right, so let's do a little shifting gears now, because this is where we move from my story into your stories. And this is one of my favorite parts of the show. Bless Your Heart is where people write in about situations that aren't world-ending, aren't tragic, and definitely don't require a group chat, okay, intervention or anything like that, but still somehow manage to live rent-free in your head. You know the ones, not technically wrong, nothing really happened, but something about it just didn't sit right. These letters are never about being cruel or dramatic. They're about those moments where you're trying to do the right thing, keep it moving, mind your business, and someone else shows up with just enough confidence or audacity to make you pause and think, okay, I'm missing something here because this feels unnecessary. That's the sweet spot. That's the bless your heart territory. And what I love about these letters is that most of the time the person writing they aren't asking to be vindicated or defended. They're asking for perspective. They're asking, did I handle this reasonably? Or did I quietly step into my petty era without realizing it? And honestly, sometimes the answer is a little bit of both, which is why these are fun to talk through. Now, today's letter is one of those, that made me smile immediately because it's not about a big blow up or a dramatic confrontation. It's about behavior, subtle behavior, the kind you notice after the fact when you replay it in your head and think, that was a choice. And once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. So let's just get into the Bless Your Heart letter because, man, this one is perfect. It's a perfect example of how something small can feel a lot bigger than it should, and how sometimes the truth of the situation shows itself without anyone having to say a word. So let me grab this and get in here, and let's pull up our Bless Your Heart letter today. Okay, are you ready? I'm ready. Here we go. Okay, so shifting gears, right? A little, just because this is where we get to bless, right? All right, this is your Bless Your Heart letter today, and I'm not even going to pretend like I'm about to read it because something different is happening right now. I don't even know what it is at the moment. Hey, Dogs. Sorry. Anyway, if I can get into this silly thing, grouchy dogs. It's cold, or rather, not cold. Here we go. Here's your letter. I'm silly today.
You're not reading this one.
Yeah.
I am. I've been listening, and honestly, I've got thoughts.
Okay. Who are you and why are you in my show right now?
Relax. I'm VB, and this letter isn't sad, dramatic, or exhausting. It's about someone who says they tell it like it is, but somehow it's always rude. Dear B, there's someone in my life who insists they're just being honest, but that honesty only ever seems to show up when they're criticizing someone else. They say things out loud that most people quietly decide not to say, then act shocked when the room gets uncomfortable. When anyone pushes back, they claim people can't handle the truth anymore, like kindness is some kind of weakness. So now I keep conversations short, neutral, surface level, because explaining myself feels like volunteering for commentary I didn't ask for. It's peaceful, but I am wondering, am I avoiding the issue, or is this just what boundaries look like with people who confuse honesty with rudeness and refuse to understand the difference?
Okay, that was pretty good. You want to come back to do the promo?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. See you later. Well, that was an intrusion. I told you I have been interrupted all day long. What is up with this? My goodness. Okay, so I don't know where she came from, but we'll see. Okay, so let's talk about this one, because this is such a classic situation that most people don't even realize how often they're dealing with it. And yes, believe me, that was a little bit different, but I was listening. The phrase, I'm just being honest. Okay, that has been abused more than the mute button on a Zoom call. Mo, 1 second. Y'all, these dogs love me too much. Oh my goodness. Please stop. I don't know. Y'all have to give me just a second here. Sorry, my dogs don't usually cause me a problem, but today is a different day. Okay. So, as I was saying, they've been more abused than the mute button on a Zoom call at this point. It means absolutely nothing on its own. It tells me nothing about intent, nothing about timing, and definitely nothing about whether what's being said actually needed to be said in the first place, right? Here's the thing nobody likes to admit out loud. Honesty without awareness is just noise. Anyone can say whatever pops into their head. That doesn't make it brave. It doesn't make it helpful. And it definitely doesn't make it necessary. But most of the time, when someone leads with, I'm just being honest, what they really mean is, I don't want to deal with the reaction I'm about to cause. That's not truth telling. That's emotional drive by commentary. What makes this letter interesting is that the behavior is subtle enough to confuse people. Okay. This isn't screaming, name calling, or obvious disrespect. It's little remarks, observations nobody asked for, opinions dropped into conversations like they're doing the group a favor. And then when the energy shifts, suddenly everyone else is the problem. People are too sensitive. People can't handle honesty anymore, which is funny because those same people, they never seem to struggle with honesty when it's positive. And that's how you know what this really is. If honesty only ever shows up as criticism, it's not honesty. It's preferred or preference disguised as principle. Real honesty shows up everywhere. It shows up in compliments. It shows up in accountability. It shows up in self-reflection. But these types, they only show up when there's something to point out in someone else. Convenient, isn't it? Yeah. What I love about how the letter writer handled this is that they didn't make it dramatic. They didn't stage a confrontation. They didn't sit anyone down for a conversation, which we all know is code for emotional labor nobody requested. They simply adjusted their availability, shorter conversations, neutral responses, less access. And here's the truth people don't like. That's not avoidance. That's efficiency. We act like boundaries have to come with an announcement and a script and a motivational quote. You know what? They don't. No. Sometimes a boundary is just you not giving someone as much material as you used to. Sometimes it's deciding that certain topics are no longer open for discussion. And sometimes it's realizing that explaining yourself over and over is not actually communication. It's just exhaustion with better grammar. Now let's talk about the funniest part of this dynamic, okay, the confusion, because these people are always confused. When things change, they all say it like this: you seem different, or you don't talk like you used to, or my personal favorite is, did I do something? And the answer is usually yes, but explaining it again would require a level of self-awareness that history suggests is not available here, not in this lifetime. So I want to be really clear about something because this matters. Seriously. You do not owe everyone the same version of you. Some people get full access. Some people get surface level conversation. And you know what? Some people get polite distance. That's not punishment. That's discernment. And it's wild how often people interpret that as cruelty when it's really just clarity. What's actually happening when you pull back, like this is that you're letting that dynamic reveal itself without your reactions, without your engagement, without your explanations. The behavior has nowhere to land. And when behavior has no audience, it tends to be very quiet. Not always, but often enough to notice. And let's be honest for a second, okay? Most of these situations, they resolve themselves once you stop trying to manage them. The moment you stop correcting and defending or justifying, the entire thing loses momentum. It's like trying to argue with someone who isn't replying, okay? Eventually, the conversation ends. So no, I don't think this letter writer is being petty, okay? Ugh, just dry, apparently. But I think they're being observant. They notice a pattern, they adjust their behavior, and they protected their peace without turning it into a production. Yeah, that's not weakness. That's maturity, okay? Cool. Somebody likes turtles. I like turtles. Big Jack, join this channel. Looky here. Y'all get to it. Hop to it. Hop to it. Boss man says so, and I say so. All right. Now then. So it's also something that becomes a lot easier once you stop confusing honesty with entitlement. Because the truth is, not every thought needs airtime, and not every opinion needs a response. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is quietly decide how much access someone actually gets, and then move accordingly. All right. That one was good. It was a good example of truth without drama. Okay. Let's just keep going. I don't want what I said to backfire, but listen, just be truthful. Truth, it sounds like a cliche, and sure it is, but truth sets you free. Don't try and, I don't know, grunge it up a little bit so it doesn't hit harder. That's not going to help. Just be nice. Be kind. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, if you say anything at all, because if you don't react, you're not putting yourself in a whole new world of pain that this is already causing you anyway, right? Because let's face it, this is emotional pain. And we don't want that, people. We do not want emotional pain in any setting, in any situation. So stand up, honey, stand up. All righty. So this is the part where I'm going to take my little break. Y'all can watch this really cool video that this really cool producer made about this really cool team. And we are the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. So y'all go check them out. Okay. I'll be back.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson. Every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns the power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss B doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss B rising, BBTV shining, her stories rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss B rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV. This is her grace.
Join Boss B for Ask a Bee Monday through Friday, 12 noon Central Standard Time and Jukebox Journey every Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Do y'all see this smile? I'm so proud of myself. I don't care. I'm proud. That was good. I love my song. Anyway, okay, so let's switch lanes for just a second because this is where we move. Well, we move from, well, that explains a lot into, okay, now what do you actually do with this? Gravel Road is about the long view, okay? Not the dramatic moment, not the argument you replay in the shower, but the part that comes after, okay? When you're just trying to live your life without turning every interaction into a think piece. These letters are about real life friction, the kind that doesn't blow up, but it doesn't go away either. It just sits there like a pothole you keep hitting because you forgot it was there. Nobody's looking for revenge here. Nobody's trying to win. They're just asking, how do I keep moving forward without getting dragged into the same? Over and over again, right? What I like about Gravel Road letters is they're practical, okay? They're not about being right. They're about being done explaining, done overthinking, done carrying situations that should have been a quick shrug and a change of direction. This is where we're going to talk about what it looks like to keep your footing when the road isn't smooth and still get where you're going without losing your sense of humor. So let's get into today's Gravel Road letter, because this one isn't about fixing anyone else. It's about figuring out how to deal with someone who keeps showing up the same way while you're trying to show up better. Okay. I'm hoping I'm not going to get interrupted. I did ask her to come back for the promo, but here we go with your gravel letter.
Dear B, I'm writing because I'm dealing with someone in my life who hasn't done anything big enough to confront, but also hasn't done anything small enough to ignore. Every interaction is just slightly off. The comments, the tone, the little digs that could be harmless if they didn't happen every single time. I've tried giving them the benefit of the doubt. I've tried being patient. I've even tried convincing myself that I'm just overthinking things. But no matter how much grace I give, the behavior stays the same, and I'm the one left feeling irritated for reasons I can't always explain out loud. What's hard is that I don't want drama. I don't want a confrontation or a big conversation that turns into a whole thing. I just want to know how to keep my peace when I have to interact with someone who consistently brings friction into otherwise normal moments. I'm tired of bracing myself before every interaction and replaying conversations afterward. I want to stay polite, stay calm, and keep moving forward without carrying this energy with me. How do you deal with someone like this without letting it affect everything else?
Well, there's one. All right, y'all. This letter right here is what I call low grade, long-term irritation, and honestly, it's one of the most exhausting kinds, okay? Not because anything huge is happening, but because nothing ever changes. There's no explosion, no clear moment where you can say, okay, this crossed a line. It's just the same tiny friction over and over again, and that wears on you in a way people don't always talk about. Now, what stood out to me immediately, you're not angry, you're tired. And that's important, a very important distinction. Anger comes with energy, okay? Fatigue comes from constantly managing yourself in response to someone else. Replaying things after, okay? Trying to decide whether it was intentional or accidental. That mental loop is what drains you, not the person themselves. Here's the truth that a lot of people don't like hearing. You don't need a confrontation to change a dynamic. Confrontation is optional. It's one tool, not a requirement. And it's situations like this. It's often not even the most effective one, especially when the behavior is subtle enough that any attempt to call it out would turn into a debate about intent instead of impact. You already figured out something important. Even if you didn't name it yet, you noticed, okay, that explaining yourself doesn't actually improve the situation. It just gives the behavior more airtime, more room, more relevance than it deserves. And that's usually the moment where people realize the issue isn't a lack of communication. It's a mismatch in awareness. What you're really asking is, how do I stay myself without absorbing this? And the answer is quieter than people expect. You don't change who you are. You change how much access someone has to you. That's it. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to justify it. Just adjust. That adjustment can look like shorter interactions, neutral responses. Less personal sharing, not because you're being cold or passive aggressive, but because you've noticed a pattern and you're responding to reality instead of hoping it will magically change. That's not avoidance. That's situational awareness. One thing I want to point out, because it matters, is that people often confuse politeness with openness. You can be polite without being available. You can be kind without being inviting, and you can be calm without being engaged. Those things are not the same, even though we're taught to treat them like they are. And yes, sometimes when you pull back like this, the other person notices. They might say you seem distant. They might ask if something's wrong. And if that happens, you still don't owe them a breakdown of your internal process. Okay. You can answer honestly without going deep. I've just been busy. I've had a lot on my plate. I'm focusing on other things right now. All true, all sufficient. What you don't want to do is fall into the trap of over explaining, because that's how you end up right back in the same loop. The goal here isn't to teach them something. The goal is to protect your strategy and your energy. And sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for both of you is stop trying to manage the situation and let it be what it is. Another important piece is letting go of the idea that every discomfort needs resolution. Some things don't get resolved. They get managed. And management looks a lot like acceptance paired with boundaries, not emotional acceptance, okay? Practical acceptance. This is how this person shows up. So this is how I'll show up around them. Once you make that shift, something interesting happens. You stop feeling surprised. You stop feeling disappointed. And because of that, the behavior loses its sting. It doesn't disappear, okay? But it doesn't take up your head either, okay? There's no space there for it. And that's when you know you're back on your own gravel road. Pardon me. Dogs, y'all. So that's when you know you're back on your own gravel road, okay? Instead of swerving to avoid potholes that aren't yours to fix. So no, you're not wrong for wanting peace over confrontation. You're not weak for choosing calm over clarity at all costs. You're just done spending energy where there's no return. Get up here, Otto. And honestly, that's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to respect. Keep your footing. Keep your sense of humor. That's my dog. Oh, yeah, I've got to do it here. And keep moving forward without turning every bump into a stop sign. That's how you stay on the road without wearing yourself out. Okay? So, guess what time it is? I guess we'll bring our girl back up and let her do the promo this time because, y'all, I need a little space. Here we go.
Right. She asked me to come back and handle this part, so here we go. I'm ready to take on the challenge. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live weekdays at 12 p.m. Central, and each day has its own focus. Same honesty, same voice, just different conversations depending on the day. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
I want to take a minute to shout out TuberChat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface-level advice, yet says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why.
If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out TuberChat. The link is in the description.
A boss be rising.